It's been a really fascinating afternoon for me. This is an unusual format for a conference, for an event around the association world in Brussels. And so it's been really terrific to attend, and I'm delighted to be able to share some thoughts on the afternoon and perhaps some perspectives on the future as we see it for our industry. I guess most of you know who we are. Perhaps some of you don't, so let me say just a couple of words. Orgalime is Europe's technology industries. We are the biggest industrial branch in Europe. Materials handling, of course, a big part of it, but many others, from the mechanical and metal technology sector to the electrical and electronics industry. That's 100,000 companies in total, 11 million direct employees. So we feel we have a voice in Brussels and across Europe that needs to be heard. The technologies which we are driving and which we are representing towards the EU range from industrial AI that we heard about this morning to smart grid, clean energy technology, to the revolution in medical science, in healthy aging, to the future of logistics, just to give you a sense of the spread of the issues that we are involved in. So no surprise, I guess, that we are very closely partnering with FEM on a number of those issues. We are proud as Orgalime to provide the engine room to FEM, but I think more than that, we are proud actually to count FEM as one of the members of our industry and our organization, helping us shape the future with a very strong shared agenda. Our role as we see it for Orgalime and for our industry is at the end of the day very simple. It's shaping a future that's good. Good for business, of course. We are a lobbying organization. That's our core, our bread and butter at the end of the day. But we don't think it's enough for a lobbying organization just to talk about what's good for business. We have to talk about what's good for people and what's good for our planet. To put that a little bit bluntly, we can be as effective as we want lobbying on the Machinery Directive, lobbying on cybersecurity, lobbying on the future legal framework to do with the sharing economy that we talked about a moment ago. If in 5 years' time the internal market breaks apart, that will have zero benefit for our industry. And that is not such a unthinkable outcome anymore. If you think about Brexit, you think about the damage that Trump is causing in European unity. You think about the rise of nationalism, populism across Europe. Perhaps you heard a couple of days ago the unprecedented step that the EU is taking towards Hungary because of breaches of the rule of law and others. That scenario is no longer unthinkable. And the only way that we can successfully defend the industry in the future is if we think about more than just the narrow economic, regulatory, bureaucratic issues that we have been traditionally dealing with as lobbying organizations, and we look at people, planet, the world around us in a much more holistic way. We also heard that this approach to thinking about a future that's good for people, for society, is actually what's driving the next generation. And it's what will help us compete in the war for talent with other companies that, at least so far, have struggled less than we have to attract the best of the next generation, whether that's the big US tech companies, whether that's consulting and financial services and others, where the material benefits have been higher, or others. If we want to win the war for talent in the future, this notion of technology with a purpose, as Mark Lombard called it earlier, will be central. And in fact, I thought there was a really nice way in which this came through in a number of the contributions. I was thinking when we heard from Angel at the very beginning, you presented the idea, you presented the business case, but actually you made a point of stopping on the privacy values part of it and saying that from the beginning you would build this into a kind of a privacy by design environment. And I think that's emblematic. That would not have been the sort of starting point even a few years ago. It's at the heart of the model that Angel was presenting. Let me share a few perspectives on what's needed for us to succeed. When I say us, I mean Orgalime, but I also mean us as industry. To succeed for business, but to succeed for Europe as a whole, and to draw some conclusions in doing so. And I will talk about three levels. I'll talk about the political leadership of Europe, whether that's EU leaders or whether that's national leaders in the capitals across Europe. I'll talk about industry, all of us, and then I'll talk about the associations specifically, so Orgalime, FEM, and the others. Let me start with the political leadership. So 2 days ago, the President of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, delivered his State of the Union. It's not quite the event that the US State of the Union speech is, but within the bubble in Brussels, it's still a big deal, right? Now, Juncker said a lot of good things, and a lot of things that we support. He talked about overcoming this phase of nationalism. He talked about being big on the big things and small on the small things, so only doing work that matters at the European level and leaving the other stuff to the countries and to the regions. He talked about migration and all the other things which are in the news. There was one word that he didn't use once. Any guesses what that word was? Money? Industry. He did not talk about industry once. This is the moment where the President of the European Commission sets out the agenda for the next year and beyond. It's the last time he has the opportunity to shape the agenda before a new European Parliament comes in, before a new European Commission comes in. So it's a big deal what he's saying. It's kind of his legacy moment. He did not use the word industry once. And that's not a coincidence. It's symptomatic of a lack of recognition by the very top of the political leadership in Europe about how central industry is to achieving all the other goals that he was talking about. And I think it's partly, at least, if I give him the benefit of the doubt, it's because of complacency. We have been doing well. Our industry, so across the different sectors within Orgalime, has been growing by 5%, 2018, 3.5% projected for next year, way ahead of the economy as a whole. Why worry? You guys can look after yourself, right? If I'm Juncker, I've got more urgent things to worry about. We think we're entering a much more uncertain period. I mentioned Trump, Brexit, all the rest of it. At the same time, the transformation that we are seeing within the industry is faster than we appreciate. Willem has been talking about this a lot. We don't even understand yet how fast it is. And it's not just transforming industry, of course, it's transforming society at the same time. Other parts of the world, US, a number of the Asian countries, are moving faster than we are investing more heavily than we are in the future. And we believe the time to take some tough decisions for the future is now. It's not in 2 years, it's not in 5 years, it's now. That's where the Commission, other parts of the leadership, in our view, are still falling short, and where we, along with our partners, have been pushing hard for a future-facing industrial strategy, and that will continue to be one of the big priorities for us going forward. Second, industry, so our own backyard. We think the transformation that we are witnessing, of course, is about huge potential within the industry itself, but it also has huge potential for society and for the planet. But just because the potential is there, it's not automatically going to materialize. Have you heard some of the language around techlash? It's not backlash, but techlash. Or big tech, that's not a positive term, right? You have big tobacco, you have big oil, now you have big tech, typically a synonym for the American tech giants. There is something going on in public perception that we talked about before as well, around artificial intelligence, around robotics, which could become a real challenge for us. We need to change that conversation about technology being associated with a disruption of our values, of our way of life, of losing control, threats to health, to jobs, and all the rest of it. We need to address that head on. Partly that is about being honest about the negatives. I think we had that conversation around robotics, and not just putting them under the carpet. But partly that is also about telling the positive stories about what this is already doing today, and not just leaving it to science fiction. Naresh talked about this a lot. I think there was a terrific series of examples of how this is already leading to such improvements in terms of quality of life, in terms of health, and all the rest of it. This is not happening enough, right? It's great that we're doing this in this room, but it's not happening enough in the lobbying, political, kind of societal stakeholder discussions. And the faster the transformation is happening, the more we wake up to that speed of the transformation, while falling behind on having the honest, engaging discussion about what this means for society, that gap is going to become a problem. So that's really an appeal to all of you, and we are playing our part, hopefully, to drive this. We need to have that conversation more confidently and more honestly about what is technology doing for society, including what are some of the negative side effects that people need to get ready for, but that ultimately the positives are way more interesting than the fear-mongering and the risk aversion that we are hearing about. Finally, a few thoughts on what it means for us as associations. We think our role as associations needs to evolve as well. The lobbying strategies of the past will not be effective in the future. So we cannot just be a technical lobbying machine. It cannot be just about arguing the economic costs, the red tape impact, the lost jobs. Those arguments are important and they need to be there, but they will not be enough. We'll have to have a much more comprehensive political vision that we are selling. If we cannot convince a politician or a journalist or an NGO about the future, the world in the future as we see it, why would they support any of the things we say on how to get there? We need to sell a bigger political vision, and that needs to involve a message that is about the societal, the environmental, the social benefits as much as the commercial, financial, economic aspects. That's a terrific example today of doing this. For me, this was really inspiring to see an association within our industry really taking a lead and trying something new, being creative in terms of the formats and the agenda. So I really want to congratulate Jos and Christophe and Olivier and all the team on putting on the event. I hope we do a lot more of these with FEM and many others that may take inspiration from the event today. We're excited, Orgalime, about the future, about the road ahead. There's a huge amount at stake for Europe. We believe that Europe's technology industries are going to be at the heart of delivering that better future that we've been talking about. So thank you very much for the attention. Look forward to the conversation after.